A girl named Eva watches in horror as a nuclear explosion destroys New York. Her boyfriend Sam grabs her hand at that moment, and like all the other residents of the building, they become desperate and run down the stairs. The building begins to collapse, and more explosions are heard outside. 9 people separate from the crowd and decide to hide in the basement, where Mickey, the building's janitor, doesn't want to let them in, but ends up opening the bunker door. While people try to recover, Mickey turns on the generator and securely locks the door behind them, putting tape on the cracks. He soon establishes the rules, as if he had been preparing for this tragedy for a long time. Mickey won't let anyone open the door until the radiation decreases, insisting that they can only live if they follow what he says. Suddenly, the shelter shakes with another tremor. Mickey says it's not a new explosion, but the building collapsing. A girl named Wendy starts crying, saying she wants to get out, but Mickey insists they need to stay in the basement. Otherwise, the radiation will burn them alive. Eva realizes her phone has no signal, and Adrian confirms that the connection is really lost. Mickey gives Delvin a walkie-talkie, but he also can't communicate with the outside world. Mickey then shows the survivors the basement. He shows them what he calls the bathroom, but says there's no extra water for bathing. Furthermore, they can't flush the toilet and must use lime instead. Eva sees another girl. She opens the door, but Mickey says it leads to his room, where no one except him can enter. Wendy is hungry, and her mother, Marilyn, asks if there's food in the shelter, and Mickey opens some cans of baked beans. After eating quickly, Delvin tries the walkie-talkie again, but all he hears is noise. Adrian asks Mickey when they'll be able to leave, but he repeats that they'll stay there as long as he says. Josh doesn't like this answer, and suggests to his half-brother Adrian and their friend Bobby that they must leave. Their friend Bobby that they leave right now. The men go to the exit, but Mickey gets angry, grabs an axe and tells them to get away from the door. They have to go back, and Mickey reminds them how, during other nuclear disasters, living people's skin fell off and their bodies became full of tumors. Ava asks him not to continue talking about something so sad, but Mickey is trying to explain that if someone tries too agonizing to watch, the acting is so good, it's agonizing to watch. The radioactive dust will enter the basement, and everyone will die. The next day, Ava goes through her bag, and Sam notices she still keeps his card. He insists they'll overcome all this because they love each other, but Ava stays quiet, lost in thought. For lunch, the survivors get beans again. Josh sighs frustrated, complaining that they'll have to eat this bad food for the rest of their lives. His words upset Mickey. He emotionally reminds everyone that they're only alive thanks to him, and that he's sharing food with them, food that he could eat alone. Sam is surprised they're arguing about beans when their loved ones are already dead. He gets very nervous, shouting that Mickey won't be able to save anyone. He continues angrily blaming Mickey for everything, and Mickey, who can't take it anymore, slaps him in the face. Seeing that Wendy is scared, Mickey calms her down, saying he won't hurt her, that he only hits little girls, and that she's already a young lady, and he distracts her by making her look at his disappearing finger. Suddenly, there's noise outside the entrance door. You can see someone is trying to open the door from outside, and everyone hopes there are people coming to save them. But Mickey isn't so optimistic and tells everyone to turn off the lights in the basement. The strangers outside start cutting the door with a hot tool, and some continue to hope for salvation. Mickey sneaks away, and soon, several armed men wearing protective clothing enter the basement. Adrian tries to convince them to lower their weapons, saying they're ordinary and peaceful people. But the strangers hit his stomach and go further into the basement, carefully looking at the survivors. Marilyn tries to hide Wendy behind her, but the armed men see the girl and take her from her mother, ignoring her desperate pleas. While some of the invaders hold Marilyn, others inject Wendy with something unknown and take her out of the basement in a protective bag. The survivors run in fear throughout the shelter, but the strangers continue searching. Eva hides in the shower, and one of the armed men finds her. Luckily, Delvin arrives quietly from behind and hits him with an axe. Meanwhile, Mickey attacks another invader with a knife, takes his weapon, and kills him. Another enemy is about to shoot Sam, but Mickey manages to kill him, too. After making sure no armed stranger is alive, Mickey turns on the light and runs to the door, locking it with a chain. Bobby and Josh find injured Adrian, and Eva, very worried about him, runs to his side. Together with Delvin, they tend to Adrian's wound and remove the knife from his hand. The two of them run to the door, move a bullet from him. Soon after, Eva realizes Sam is nowhere to be found and starts looking for him. Fortunately, Sam survived, and is relieved to see that Eva is also well. Marilyn, in shock, tries to deal with the loss of Wendy, and Mickey puts tape on the door again. Then, Delvin and Josh look at one of the bodies and remove the protective clothing. Mickey says the enemies were wearing radiation suits, and suggests the nuclear disaster may have been planned by America's enemies. When they remove the helmet, they remove the protective clothing, and they remove the tape. Delvin realizes at least one of the enemies is Asian, which may indicate he's from North Korea. Suddenly, the survivors see Marilyn trying to remove the tape from the door, trying to leave the basement and find her daughter. The men lock her in a storage room, where she continues to scream desperately. They then gather all the bodies and wrap them in plastic as they still can't throw them away. Delvin tries once more to communicate with the outside world using the radio, but all he can hear is a stranger's voice saying, "Finish the cleanup," with an American accent. Delvin then tries to get the tape out of the door, but he can't. Mickey tells Delvin to turn off the radio, thinking it's the reason they were discovered. Suddenly, Delvin sees a sausage coming out of Mickey's pocket. Everyone realizes he's hiding something, but Mickey says this is his place, and he has the right to keep something for himself, while the others eat only beans. Ava asks if anyone took food to Marilyn. Clearly, no one cares about her, so Ava decides to take cans and try to comfort her. But Marilyn responds saying that Wendy was the only important thing in her life. The group then starts discussing whether they should go look for Wendy. Mickey and Bobby are against the idea, but Delvin wants to go. Mickey doesn't trust that he'll return, so he asks for one of the brothers to go, because one will return for the other. Josh accepts, and puts on one of the enemy's suits to see what's happening outside. Marilyn begs Josh to bring her daughter back. Josh says he'll do his best. Soon, the survivors open the door, and are shocked to find large plastic tunnels extending from it. The group returns to the shelter, while Josh continues. After a while, one of the tunnels leads Josh to a laboratory where several people in protective clothing are working. Josh looks around and sees a jar full of Wendy's cut hair. While exploring more of the laboratory, he discovers boxes with children inside. When he sees Wendy, suddenly, one of the laboratory workers notices that Josh is acting strange and decides to check his documents. Josh manages to push and escape, returning to the bunker and shooting several of the enemies along the way. But unfortunately, he loses his weapon. Back at the shelter, Josh nervously tells what he saw outside and apologizes to Marilyn for not saving her daughter. Meanwhile, strange sounds come from the door. The laboratory workers are welding from the outside, ensuring that no one can leave without their permission again. Days pass, and the survivors gradually get used to their trapped life. Following their routines, Josh begins to notice signs of radiation sickness, even having left the shelter with protective clothing. One day, Ava visits Adrian, who is almost fully recovered from his injury. She remembers how, before the disaster, they were neighbors and she liked to hear him play guitar. Ava wants to kiss Adrian, but they're interrupted by Sam. Meanwhile, the bodies of the strangers left in the bunker begin to rot, creating a bad smell for the survivors. Mickey suggests they cut up the bodies and throw them in what they call the toilet. Delvin thinks they could try to open the door and drag them outside, but Mickey responds that it's closed forever. The survivors have no choice but to accept Mickey's suggestion, and Bobby agrees to do the dirty work. After doing this, Bobby becomes different. And trying to deal with loneliness and distract herself from her thoughts, Marilyn begins an intimate relationship with Bobby. One night, Devide goes to the bathroom and notices that Mickey's secret room is open, but Mickey is nowhere to be found. However, when Devide starts to urinate, he hears Mickey entering the room. He asks Mickey to explain how he returned so quietly, but Mickey pushes him out and locks the room. Devide decides to tell the other survivors what he saw. Soon, they all ransack Mickey's room, and each finds something of theirs among his things, which means the commander had entered their apartments when they weren't home. After a while, Mickey appears at the door very angry, reminding them that entering his room is forbidden. Devide, who found his ball, wants to know why Mickey took it, but Mickey doesn't answer. From then on, Mickey's room becomes a shared space, and his TV helps relieve the survivors' monotonous days. Meanwhile, Marilyn and Bobby are being intimate. It seems Marilyn is no longer very worried about her daughter's disappearance. Later that night, Ava passes by and offers to listen to Marilyn if she wants to share something. However, Marilyn suggests that Ava focus on Josh, insinuating that Ava is very pretty, and what will happen to them the longer they stay trapped with several men. The words upset, and she stops trying to help Marilyn. Soon after, the food begins to run out. The men argue with Mickey, thinking he's hiding something, since he's the only one who hasn't lost weight during this time. Later, Josh and Bobby discuss how they could escape, because otherwise they won't survive. But Adrian reminds them that the door is impossible to open, and there's only one protective suit, so escaping seems unlikely. At the same time, Ava sees Devide taking a stun gun from his locker and going to Mickey's room. Inside, Devide sees Mickey coming out of a hidden closet behind an American flag, and demands that Mickey let him in. Mickey has no choice but to obey Devide, and Devide discovers that the closet is hiding a large weapon. The discovery shocks Devide, and Mickey, taking advantage of the moment, grabs the weapon and shoots Devide. Shocked, Ava calls for help. The group runs to Mickey's room, demanding an explanation. Mickey says he shot Devide in self-defense, because Devide was trying to take his son to school, and that's why he's not in his supplies and weapons. The survivors don't believe Mickey and hold him down. Then Ava takes the weapon and knocks him unconscious with a blow to the head, tying him to a chair. Josh and Bobby try to open the storage room, but it only opens with a code. Furious, Josh tries to take the weapon from Ava to force Mickey to reveal the code, but Ava doesn't want to give the weapon to Josh, and throws it in the toilet for everyone's safety. This was a terrible idea, because Bobby then starts beating Mickey. He's then asked to stop, but Josh takes the knife and cuts Mickey's finger. Crazy with rage, Josh threatens to cut another finger, but Mickey finally gives in and reveals the code. Everyone goes to the storage room, leaving Mickey tied to the chair. Soon, Marilyn, who is clearly out of her mind due to trauma, watches him. The survivors discover a stash of various foods in Mickey's secret room, and Bobby says they need to kill Mickey, as he has been deceiving them all along. Bobby drags Mickey to another room, provoking him while doing a trick with his cut finger, just like Mickey did with Wendy. Soon after, relieving himself in the middle of the room, saying he's no longer alone. During dinner, Marilyn's menstruation starts. Ava gives her water to clean her hand. Josh kicks the table, saying they need to ration the water. Bobby and Josh humiliate and mock Marilyn. Ava can't stand their disgusting behavior and runs to the front door, desperately asking for help. Sam reaches her, initially trying to calm her down, but then trying to take advantage of her. Ava manages to break free. Meanwhile, the unbalanced Marilyn puts on bright makeup in a clumsy attempt to win Bobby's favor again. Feeling a little calmer, Ava passes by what was Mickey's room and sees Bobby and Josh crossing the line with Marilyn. That night, tired, Marilyn visits Ava and Sam, and they offer to let her stay with them. But then Bobby and Josh come to get Marilyn and drag her back to the room. Ava tries to protect the woman, but Adrian stops her. They exchange a look full of obvious affection, which Sam notices. Bobby brings the tied-up Mickey back to the others and says Ava needs to talk to Josh. Josh gives some food to Ava and Sam, insinuating he would give her more if she agreed to sleep with him. Adrian asks for an explanation for Josh's behavior, but he simply says he's distributing supplies to ensure everyone survives. Ava then gives Mickey some food from her portion. Mickey reassures her, saying he intended to talk about the food once the initial supplies ran out, to determine who they can trust and who they can't. Mickey asks Ava to come closer and whispers that there's a weapon in his storage room that no one has noticed yet. Ava asks Sam to get the weapon secretly. Sam says Mickey is lying, and even if the weapon exists, they'll only anger Bobby and Josh even more. Irritated, Sam says Ava was a drug addict, and that he took her off the street, so she shouldn't tell him what he has to do anymore. Later, Sam joins Bobby and Josh, who force him to bark like a dog in exchange for food. Ava enters their room and sees Marilyn all beaten up, then asks Sam to come out for a conversation. Bobby and Josh don't let Sam go and force Ava to join them for a game of truth or dare. Ava reluctantly chooses truth, and Josh asks if she loves Sam. She answers yes, then asks Josh if he enjoyed torturing Mickey. A furious Josh insists he didn't, and that he only tortured him because they had no other choice. Sam tries to calm the tension, but Josh loses his patience and forces Sam to cut up Delvin's body. At first, Sam refuses, but Bobby and Josh humiliate him and force him to take the axe. However, when Sam approaches Delvin's body, he hesitates to make the first cut. Josh twists his arms, and with Bobby's help, they force Ava to cut the body instead of Sam. To save Sam from more torture, Ava reluctantly agrees. Meanwhile, Josh's radiation sickness gets worse. His hair starts falling out, and he decides to shave his head. He then shaves Bobby, who begins to show the same symptoms. Bobby starts losing his mind. He puts on a dress and tries to put makeup on his face, desperately trying to bring some life back to his sick appearance. Ava asks Mickey where the weapon is. The man begs her to untie him, but she refuses. Suddenly, he says there really is an exit from the Ava goes to Mickey's room to get the weapon, but is stopped by Bobby and Josh. They start harassing her, but she manages to escape from them, unfortunately without the weapon. She also discovers Marilyn's body on the bed, who couldn't survive the torment. Later, Ava notices her own hair falling out, realizing she's also sick. Understanding that the basement doesn't protect against radiation, and there's nothing left to lose, she demands that Sam get the weapon while she cuts the power, distracting Bobby. Ava then approaches Josh, pretending to be willing to surrender, luring him out of the room. Meanwhile, Sam sneaks in, but to his horror, he discovers that the storage room door won't open. Suddenly, Bobby appears behind him, revealing they changed the code 2 weeks ago. Sam begs him to let him in and give him food, but Bobby kisses him and starts harassing him. Bobby then says it was all a joke, and lets him into the storage room. Sam finds the weapon, but accidentally drops it in front of Bobby. Bobby leans down to pick it up, but Sam suddenly shows determination. He punches Bobby with all his strength, takes the weapon, and kicks Bobby out of the storage room, threatening to shoot him. Meanwhile, Josh begins to suspect Ava's plan. He beats her and tries to abuse her, but she manages to stab him in the face with a pencil. However, he doesn't let her escape. He starts strangling her, but Adrian runs to help Ava. She then sees that Sam managed to get the weapon, but the surviving members of the group start surrounding him, each trying to distract him and take the weapon. Ava screams for Sam to give the weapon to Adrian, someone he can trust, but out of jealousy, Sam shoots him instead. Ava runs to Adrian, while Josh and Bobby beat Sam violently. Josh tells Bobby to shoot Sam, but then, unexpectedly, Bobby points to Josh's head. At that moment, Ava grabs a can of food, cuts Bobby's throat with the lid, and takes the weapon. She starts untying Mickey. Josh chases her, but Mickey shoots him just in time. Suddenly, the wounded Josh breaks an oil lamp in front of him, and the flames engulf him while Mickey and Sam try to put out the flames. Ava runs out of the room and locks herself in the storage room, where she puts on protective clothing and gathers supplies. The men try to open the door, but only Bobby and Josh knew the nuke was on. They beg Ava not to leave them trapped in the burning bunker, but she doesn't respond. Ava goes through the sewage pit and soon finds herself in the middle of a destroyed New York City. Thank you for reaching this part of the video. If you like it, please subscribe and hit notification bell. Until next time, see ya.